In the heart of Port Charles, where grudges are carved into stone and vengeance brews beneath the surface of civility, Sonny stood on the brink of a dangerous decision that threatened to undo every shred of progress he had made in recent years. Ever since Sidwell orchestrated the plot that led to Natalia's death, Sonny had been a man possessed. His grief had calcified into rage, and in that darkness, he began to contemplate the one move that everyone close to him feared most. Striking back at Sidwell not through the courts or the streets, but through the child Sidwell loved most. Carly sensed the change in Sonny's demeanor before he ever said a word. She saw it in the way his hands clenched when Sidwell's name was mentioned, in the low growl of his voice whenever he discussed justice. But nothing compared to the chill that ran down her spine when Sonny, eyes cold with the kind of finality that meant he had made up his mind, murmured the words she never thought he'd say again. He wanted to take Sidwell's child from him, not through custody battles, not through manipulation, but through blood. A move that would trigger a war no one could survive. Carly, once accustomed to Sonny's volatility, found herself unsettled in a way that shook her to her core. This wasn't just about revenge anymore. This was about legacy, humanity, and the irreversible damage that one wrong act could inflict, not only on Sonny, but on all of them. She pleaded with him to reconsider, to remember that Sidwell's child was innocent, that there was still one untouched corner of this conflict that hadn't yet been stained by death or betrayal. She reminded him that unlike Sonny, Sidwell had only one child. A child with a full, innocent life ahead. To destroy that would be to become the monster Sonny believed he was fighting. But Sonny was unmoved. The pain of losing Natalia had consumed his logic. All he saw was Sidwell walking free, gloating behind his tailored mask of civility, while Natalia's memory faded into the cold ground. Justice, Sonny believed, had failed him. Only retribution remained. And it wasn't about evening the score, it was about ending the game altogether. Desperate to reach Sonny before he made a mistake that could never be undone, Carly turned to the one person she knew could pull Sonny back from the edge, Jason. Though their friendship had weathered betrayal, distance, and death itself, Jason remained Sonny's moral anchor. He was the only person Sonny truly trusted to tell him the truth, even when it hurt. And Jason, ever loyal to the code he and Sonny had long ago crafted together, didn't hesitate when Carly asked him to intervene. But Jason didn't come to Sonny with threats or lectures. He came with a name, Marco. The son of Sidwell. The very boy Sonny wanted to destroy. But Jason knew something Sonny didn't. Marco had risked his life to save Christina. In a moment when Sidwell's scheme could have ended in another death, Marco acted not out of loyalty to his father, but out of basic human decency. He saw Christina cornered, helpless, and despite the blood that ran in his veins, he chose to protect her. Jason's words landed like a thunderclap in Sonny's mind. For a moment, the rage retreated, replaced by confusion. He hadn't known. He hadn't cared to know. And now that he did, Sonny's internal battle took on a new dimension. Could he really justify hurting someone who had shown more humanity than the man who raised him? Could he allow vengeance to override gratitude? And worse, could he let himself become the kind of man who would destroy a life that had once saved one of his own? Carly watched the flicker of doubt cross Sonny's face, the first sign that her words and Jason's intervention had pierced the armor of grief he'd built around himself. She didn't expect forgiveness, not for what Sidwell had done, but she begged Sonny to choose a different path. One that honored Christina's survival instead of shaming it. One that allowed them to walk away without carrying yet another ghost on their conscience. As Sonny wrestled with the gravity of his decision, another crisis unfolded across town, one that, though unrelated at first glance, carried implications just as haunting. Willow, already unraveling under the weight of her lies, was taken into police custody on charges of kidnapping a child. The child was Daisy, the infant she had once manipulated, hidden, and falsely claimed was her own in a bid to destroy Sasha and reclaim a life she had long since shattered. When the police found her, she didn't resist. But she also didn't speak. Her eyes were vacant, her posture limp, and as she was escorted into the precinct, her body finally gave out. She collapsed in the hallway of the station, her face hitting the floor with a sickening crack. Officers scrambled, calling for medics, and within minutes she was being rushed to General Hospital, unconscious, pale, and broken. The news of Willow's collapse spread quickly. Sasha, upon hearing the details, didn't smile. There was no triumph in watching her tormentor fall. Only exhaustion. Only sorrow that it had come to this. For all of Willow's crimes, emotional manipulation, deceit, even theft of motherhood, there remained something undeniably tragic about the woman who had once fought so hard for family, only to become a stranger to it. Michael, too, was shaken. As the father of the child Willow had tried to take, he had every right to be angry. But part of him, buried deep beneath the hurt, remembered the woman she used to be. The woman who loved Wiley like her own. The woman who once believed in second chances. Now she lay in a hospital bed, handcuffed to the rail, drifting in and out of a consciousness haunted by the weight of her choices. And as if fate itself were mocking Port Charles, Sonny found himself staring through the hospital window at Willow's broken form just hours after contemplating taking another innocent life. It was a reminder he couldn't ignore. That destruction came in many forms. That sometimes, revenge didn't need a bullet to ruin a soul, it just needed enough darkness to let someone forget who they were. Jason stood beside him, silent. He didn't need to say anything. Sonny knew what the silence meant. That there was still time to choose differently. That redemption was not a myth. That the dead were not honored by creating more grief. And perhaps, most importantly, that the living still needed protection, not punishment. Back at the Corinthos estate, Carly held Christina a little tighter. She knew that had Marco not intervened, her daughter might not be alive. She didn't know what future lay ahead for Sidwell's son. But in that moment, she was certain of one thing: Sonny had not yet crossed the line. And as long as there were people around him willing to hold up a mirror to his pain, maybe he never would. Elsewhere, Sidwell remained unaware that the line between life and death for his child had been so perilously thin. Or perhaps he knew. Perhaps he was counting on Sonny to falter, to lose himself. But this time, Sonny didn't. Not because he forgave. Not because he forgot. But because in a town built on betrayal and blood, mercy was the last act of power he still controlled. As for Willow, her future was far less certain. Charges still loomed, a trial would still come, and her body would eventually recover, but whether her mind ever did remained to be seen. She had fought so hard to be seen, to matter, to belong. In doing so, she had lost everything. Port Charles moved on, as it always did. But beneath the calm surface, storms still churned. And in the hearts of those who had survived, scars remained, not as marks of weakness, but as reminders. That in this town, sometimes the bravest thing you could do was not to fight, but to choose not to destroy. Even when every part of you wanted to.